Hello and welcome to another edition of Council Countdown. We have two meetings here today. Our first one is the Community Services and Land Use Committee meeting that will be beginning here at 3 p.m. in just a couple of minutes. And then following that, we have our regular County Council meeting beginning at 5. For those of you who are following along, remember you can always view meetings, schedules, minutes, agendas, and packets online at BeaufortCountySC.gov. And I almost forgot to tell you who we are. I'm Chloe G, and I'm here with our Public Information Officer, Hannah Nichols. Hannah, thanks for being here and joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Chloe.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about the Community Services and Land Use Committee meeting that we have here at 3?
Absolutely. So we've got two fabulous meetings today, and we're going to start with Community Services and Land Use Committee at 3. So first we're going to be able to hear a discussion regarding a letter of support for the Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust, and then we'll see the potential approval of an ordinance to amend Beaufort County's traffic impact analysis policy. Then there is a consideration of an amendment to the zoning map, and then we'll hear the review of the volunteer service agreement for the Friends of Whitehall Park. The final item on today's agenda is recommendation of approval to fund due diligence and negotiate terms for several Green Space Program applications. So these properties have come forward through the Green Space Program, and the purpose of that program is to preserve open space, protect critical and natural resources, and provide land for recreation. So we're excited to see what those projects might be. So we're going to hear, I believe, from Councilman Mike McShane about that today.
Great. And so, like Hannah just mentioned, a lot of things to cover here in this community services meeting, but we hope that everybody is able to stick around for tonight's county council meeting starting at 5 p.m. We'll begin the meeting with our administrator's report, citizen comments, liaison and committee reports, and the consent agenda. Tonight, we have the third reading of the ordinance for a proposed sales and use tax referendum that, if approved, will go on the ballot this November. Then we'll see the second reading of our county budget ordinance. Then we'll see 4 agenda items relating to the conveyance of easements or properties. And our final agenda item for today is the approval to accept the Parks and Recreation Master Plan for Beaufort County's active Parks and Recreation facilities. That was just a very quick gloss over everything that's going to be covered tonight. So as always, like we mentioned, anything you want to check out, agendas, packets, minutes, they can all be found at BeaufortCountySC.gov.
Now, if you stick around with us, we've got a number of announcements. As everyone knows, hurricane season is upon us. Hurricane season runs from June 1st to November 30th, and Beaufort County is urging all residents to prepare now before a storm is on its way. This is your opportunity to see what long-term preparations you can make sure all of your supplies are finalized and ready, and you have a plan for evacuation should that be ordered. It's important in South Carolina to know your zone. State and local officials issue hurricane evacuations based on zones in coastal counties. So know your hurricane evacuation zone by using the South Carolina Emergency Manager mobile app, and you can also visit hurricane.sc. Download South Carolina's online hurricane guide. You can find that at BeaufortCountySC.gov or at hurricane.sc. You can prepare your home now, so do a safety check to make sure your home is able to withstand the effects of a hurricane. Get your roof inspected, double check your shutters, make sure your insurance policies are up to date. And it's also a great time to make a list of your belongings and take pictures as records, so you can take that with you and know should you have to make an insurance claim later. Remember your route, so be aware of the closest hurricane evacuation route ahead of the upcoming season. And once you've learned it, stick with it, remember it, rely on that instead of your GPS system.
A lot of great information right there, Hannah, and I've just heard that we are kind of expecting a busier hurricane season maybe than what we saw last year. And if you're new to the area, this is a lot of things that you may not have thought about before, so it is super important to get prepared and get ready for the next couple of months.
Absolutely.
Another announcement that we have, tomorrow the Veterans Affairs Office will be closed for a staff training on Tuesday and Wednesday, the 11th and 12th. The office will return to normal business hours on Thursday, June 13th. An administrator will be available during the training by phone and email only to set up appointments. However, the office will remain closed to the public for those 2 training days. So if you need to visit the Veterans Affairs Office for any reason, hold off until Thursday, as they want to have some staff training to make sure that they are better equipped to serve you guys. So.
Also starting this week, Beaufort County Solid Waste and Recycling has implemented a brand new pilot program for electronic recycling. So in addition to their quarterly, regularly scheduled e-waste events, this pilot program allows for residents to drop off those e-waste items at a personally convenient scheduled time. You can schedule your drop-off date online now at BeaufortCountySC.gov. Residents must schedule an appointment, and you can bring up to 5 items of residential e-waste. But if you have questions about what might qualify as an e-waste item, we have a list of that on the news section of our website.
Yes, and we have these every quarter, periodically. So if you're too busy this time, don't worry, there's going to be another one coming around here pretty
Well, what's
soon.
key about this is that it lets you schedule your own time. So you can schedule it whenever is convenient for you. And I think that's a really great option for those busier residents. I love that. You want me to go ahead?
Go ahead. Go right ahead.
I do just want to take a moment to brag on our BCTV team. They're always developing new and engaging content that matters to this area. Our very own Chloe G and Troy Matthews just recently won Telly Awards for their programs Murdoch Money Trials and an episode of Live, Work, Play. You can watch those and other award-winning programs on cable channels Hargray Channel 9 and 417, Comcast Channel 2, Spectrum Channel 1304, or you can always stream us live or on demand at BeaufortCounty.tv and through the free BCTV app available on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and Amazon Fire. So whatever platform you're watching us on right now, we appreciate it. We thank you, and many kudos to Chloe G and the rest of the team.
Yes, thank you for the shout out. We work very hard and we are excited to be able to bring this to you guys. And like you mentioned, whatever you're watching us on right now, keep on watching. And if you want to switch up your platforms, there is so many different ways to find us. So that is very exciting. Another announcement, the Beaufort County Passive Parks Department has an exciting nature program schedule with birding, trail walks, and special events on the schedule. This week, there are 2 opportunities to take it outside with a Bluffton Library talk at 2 p.m. on Wednesday and a trail talk at Widgeon Point on Thursday at 9:30 a.m. Contact the Passive Park Naturalist at destiny.rains@bcgov.net for more information, or visit BeaufortCountySC.gov/passive-parks to see the whole program schedule. These are fun. I know you've got to attend several of these events.
I've been on several now, yeah.
It's fun and it's relaxing, and it's a great way to see what our Passive Parks has to offer, right?
And I'm learning something every time I go. Destiny and Stephanie are great wealths of information as far as the environment and the wildlife that we have here. And the more you know, the more you appreciate it.
Yes, hopefully I get to attend one at some point, but get out there, especially with our beautiful weather we've been having, so perfect time.
It's very, very fun. The Board of Voter Registration and Elections of Beaufort County would like to remind everyone that, of course, the statewide primary is tomorrow, Tuesday, June 11th. Polls are going to be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., but we do ask that you just double-check your polling location prior to going because they may have changed. We've had some adjustments, some schedule changes, so check out your voter registration and find your polling location by going to scvotes.gov.
Yes, that is very important. Tomorrow is the final day. And like you mentioned, the polling locations, I know I personally got a letter in the mail saying mine had changed. So make sure you're on the lookout for that. Very important. You don't want to show up at the wrong place and run into some issues. And another announcement, the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources will be conducting their annual shellfish ground management efforts, oyster shell reseeding, at several Beaufort County boat landings beginning this week and running through mid-June. The boat landings will remain open to the public. However, there will be increased truck and barge activity throughout each day while SCDNR reseeds the oyster beds at each location. The next 2 weeks of work will be completed at Eddings Point. For more information, visit the news section at BeaufortCountySC.gov. And we've mentioned it several times. That is a very important and valuable resource for anything Beaufort County, whether it's closures or events or anything going on. You can always check it out.
We love our website, absolutely. For those of you just tuning in, we are so thrilled that you're joining us. We have a Community Services and Land Use Committee meeting in here starting at 3 p.m. For those of you following along at home, just like we mentioned, the website has all of our meeting schedules, minutes, agendas, and packets available all the time. Today at this meeting, we're going to hear a discussion regarding a letter of support for the Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust and approval of an ordinance to amend Beaufort County's traffic impact analysis policy. Then there are several considerations and potential approvals. We've got the volunteer service agreement for the Friends of Whitehall Park, and we've got several properties coming up through our green space program. So these programs are applying essentially to be a part of that preservation program. That program's goal is to preserve open space, protect critical and natural resources, and provide land for recreation to Beaufort County residents. So it's a very important initiative, and we're excited to see what Chairman Mike McShane has for us today.
Yes, and following that meeting, we do have our regularly scheduled county council meeting beginning at 5 p.m. We'll begin that meeting with our administrator's report, citizen comments, liaison and committee reports, and the consent agenda. Tonight, we have the third reading of the ordinance for a proposed sales and use tax referendum that, if approved, will go on the ballot this November. And we just talked about voting and how important that is. And then we're going to see the second reading of the county budget ordinance. Then we'll see 4 agenda items relating to the conveyance of easements or properties. Our final agenda item today is the approval to accept the Parks and Recreation Master Plan for Beaufort County's active parks and recreation facilities. That was just a very quick gloss over everything that we're going to be covering tonight. So we encourage everyone to continue to tune in and even come on out if you're interested in hearing about any of these things in person.
Absolutely. Well, Chloe, thank you so much for having me on today. It's always a pleasure.
Of course. Stay tuned for the meeting.
The Community Services and Land Use Committee meeting, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for everyone being here today. We have a quorum. We have one member who is online, that is York Glover, our vice chairman. We can see him. And so we are not required to call the roll as long as we have a quorum. Public notification of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. Is that correct, Ms. Brock? Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
A motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Without objection, the agenda is approved. At this time, we have two people for citizen comment. I'm going to read it.
No, we have approval of minutes.
Oh, approval of the minutes, yes. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get ahead of everything. All right. I hope everyone had a chance to review the minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any changes or corrections?
No.
Okay. I have a motion to approve the minutes, please.
I'll make the motion.
All right, the motion was made by Ms. Tabernack. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Without objection, the minutes from May 13th are approved. Okay, now we get to citizen comments, and I will read them in the order they were received. The first person is Bob Simler, if he'll come forward. And please state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Ms. Chairwoman, Bob Semler, 5963 Pleasant Farm Drive, Beaufort, South Carolina, 29906. I'm here to say thank you to you, Ms. Chairwoman, and to Stephanie Najid for the help on Friends of Whitehall and the agreement that'll be going forward to the County Council, hopefully. A lot of hard work was done there. And just as the volunteer program the County Council has, Friends program is also just as important and should be nurtured just as much as the volunteers are. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for those who may remember, he was chairman of the Planning Commission too in another life, right? And thank you for all the hard work that Ms. Naggett and your group did to get where we're at with Whitehall. Next is Karen Radford, and if she'll come forward and state your name and your address for the record.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Karen Radford. I have 2 properties currently in Beaufort. One is in Picket Fences, 5 Bradford Court. The other is my father's property at 32 Eustis Landing, and that is on Ladies Island in Beaufort as well. He passed in November of this year. And what I was going to comment on, and I was not sure how this agenda went today, but was on the zoning, number 10, under the agenda items. I thought I would be speaking after that, but I just wanted to talk about what a nice, quiet neighborhood it is there. I think all the neighbors there were concerned about the noise and the influence of a business coming in there and what it would do to the property values. So again, I thought I would be speaking after that. I don't know, it's just a great neighborhood with beautiful green space, and we would hate to lose that green space. Other than that, I don't know what to say at this time, but thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Radford. Okay, we have Mr. Gerald Dawson joined us too. We'll have his name entered. He is remote, like Councilman Glover and Councilman Dawson are remote today. Okay, are there any other public comment last minute? Seeing none, we will go on to number 8. This is a new item. It is, oh, I'm sorry, Miss Audra, come on. We're going to hear from Assistant County Administrator Audra Anasoni Ogden today. Mr. Chuck is out of town. Okay.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. Just a few things I wanted to pass down in the Community Services Division. Just a reminder from the Board of Voter Registration and Elections of Beaufort County that tomorrow, June 11th, is the statewide primary. The polling locations will open 7 a.m. and close at 7 p.m. Voters can find their polling locations on the county's website under voter registration. So we encourage everyone to get out and vote. From the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Department, this year marks the 50th anniversary for the department. With that, we thought it would be a perfect opportunity to rebrand the department. This is in an effort to reduce the stigma of substance use disorders. So the staff, the last few months, has been working on rebranding the department. So hopefully in the next few weeks, we'll be able to come before committee and provide you with the new department name.
Oh, great.
And in the Human Services Department, the Community Services Grant application process opened today, and that will run through August 9th. And that is an opportunity for nonprofits in Beaufort County that are a 501c3 to apply for the grants that County Council graciously has approved and awards every year.
Okay. Any questions on her report or comments? I'd like to ask, I understand a few of the polling places changed for this election and will probably be different. I mean, will probably be those same ones in the fall. I think one was one of the ones that served Shell Point. Do you know how many different voting places changed?
I don't know how many changed. I can find that out, but any voter can go on their website. That is current and up to date.
Okay.
And they can look at it on the voter registration webpage.
Okay.
But
Madam
yes,
Chairman?
some polling locations did change.
Yes, sir.
Hilton had one changed as well. It's to Sand Sharks, USCB.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's a good reminder for everybody to check. They should have gotten a notice in the mail, too.
Yes.
A postcard.
Yes, they did
But-
send those out.
And I'm sure it was done to anticipation of the large turnout probably later.
In the
into-
general election?
In the general election.
Yes, ma'am.
But that's good that people can get used to going to that new polling place now.
Yes.
If they choose so to do. And the applications for human services, are they online too?
They are.
Okay.
They can all be done online.
And they have to
Yes,
be a
ma'am.
501c3?
Yes, ma'am.
Organization.
That is one of the eligibility requirements.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
I have one.
Yes, ma'am?
I put political signs down by the USCB, and they called and said, you can't put them here. Not like that, not this year.
There are state regulations in regard to.
Right, but it was nowhere near. It was down the street, but they're saying it was 500 feet, and the polling place was like all the way through the parking lot.
It could be that the town of Hilton Head, I know with unincorporated Beaufort County, there are sign regulations, so it could be been in violation of their sign regulations.
Okay. Well, a nice lady called and said, come get your signs. But like a polling place, let's just take May River High School. You can't put them in front of the high school right there, but can you probably put them down the street, maybe a block or so? I wasn't clear on that.
Yeah, you'd have to check I can only speak for unincorporated Beaufort County, but the municipalities, their ordinances are different. So I would definitely check with the municipality, see what their sign regulations are.
May River, is that Beaufort County or is that town of Bluffton?
I believe that is in the town of
I'm just
Bluffton.
taking examples, you know.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know. That's the first time that's ever happened, because I know when I ran for office a couple of years ago, well, Mark Lawson he taught me that, just put all the signs up, but along the sidewalk, but then.
And typically, political signs, or actually no sign is allowed in the right-of-way.
Right, I
Is it,
know that.
You know,
That I do know.
SCDOT,
Yeah.
and the right-of-way is questionable. So I would definitely reach out to that jurisdiction and find out what the regulations are.
Oh, just go by the polling and ask them where I could put them?
No, I would reach out, not the polling location, I would reach out to the local municipality. Whether it's the town of
okay.
Bluffton or the town of Hilton Head or unincorporated Beaufort County,
Okay.
they would be able to tell you the regulations for signage in that area.
Thank you, Audra.
You're welcome.
Okay, Councilman Glover or Councilman Dawson, did you have any questions for Audra?
No, Madam Chair, I'm good.
Okay. All right. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, now we can go to number 8. This is a discussion regarding a letter of support for the Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust. This is for information, and if you'll introduce yourself, Mr. Hicks.
Hi, I'm Claude Hicks. My address is 2300 Preserve West in Port Royal. I'm here today as my capacity as the Executive Director of the Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust. And in particular, we are asking for a letter of support for an application that we are submitting to the state of South Carolina to participate in their home repair fund. As many of you know who saw our press release last week, we awarded $984,000 to various entities here in Beaufort and Jasper County. One of the ideas, or one of the entities that we wanted to fund, was home repair. There is a $20 million fund in the state of South Carolina that has not been used very well, and none of those funds have come here. We have to do a rather substantive application. That application requires that we have letters of support. So I'm here today to ask you if you would consider a letter of support. We'll actually draft it for you and send it for its review here by your council. But we believe that this can make a significant difference. Even though we handed out a lot of dollars last week, the need is staggering. And we want to try and address that need. We want to try and be a recipient of part of that $20 million fund.
Okay, well, I'll open it up for questions. This is just a discussion. Any questions?
Madam Chairman, this is York Glover. Can I speak right quickly?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
I appreciate Mr. Hicks coming. This has been long overdue. One of the comments that was made by Dana previously was that there was funding at the state level that stayed up in the upper part of South Carolina and not in the lower part. And so this is our attempt now to bring some of that funding down in the lower part where it's really needed. And I agree with his comment that there's a lot of home repair, particularly among the elderlies, that this fund could actually be used for. So I really applaud his effort and the efforts being made by the Housing Trust. Thank you. And I'll be ready to make a motion if you need me to. Thank you, Madam.
Should we make, go ahead, Tom.
Just one more thought.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever heard of a national organization called HomeWorks? Please.
We have. I've only been here for, I think it's a month and a half, or 2 months and a half.
Yeah.
They are one of the organizations that we're going to reach out to ask how we can partner with them, how we can take advantage of some of their funding structure. I think right now we are realizing that even the most amount of money that we could bring in here is still only going to touch the need. So we will partner with them. We will partner with a number of other organizations to make sure that this job gets done.
Think about this. We lived in Charlotte for about 16 years, and through our church program, we worked with HomeWorks, the national. They love that type of work, and they support it. And a lot of the kids that we had through our classes, CCD, Faith Formation, they love doing that. So if you want some information on it, I can help you with that.
Sure,
We appreciate
absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're looking for any resource we can find.
And Mr. Hicks, you came to us from Maine, correct? State of Maine?
No, that was Dana. I came
Oh,
here
Dana.
from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. but-
Lancaster.
But my,
Okay. Northeast,
my
I'm
mother and
sorry.
father were both born and raised in Charleston, so this, for me, is coming home.
Okay,
Nice.
I apologize. I was
That's
thinking
okay.
Maine for some. Mr. Cavaney, do we need to make a motion at this point?
Well, after your discussion, if anybody is moved to make a motion that the
Okay.
committee recommend to council that it authorize the county administrator to sign this letter of support, that's appropriate if it gets second and carries.
Okay. I had one other question. Some other local governments have already signed this letter of support, is that right? That you're aware of, or?
I need to check and see how many letters we have already gotten in. I
The
know
more
we
the
got.
merrier, right?
The more the merrier.
All right. I entertain a motion to,
I'll make that motion.
all right.
I'll second
thank you. All right. We have
Thank you.
any other discussion? Questions? If not, without objection, we'll forward this and have the county administrator sign a letter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming today.
Appreciate it very
And
much.
thank you for your chairman coming from your board, too, Mr. Stewart.
For the record, Chairman, So this committee is going to make a recommendation to council that it authorize the county administrator. So
Okay.
it'll go there.
All right,
That's probably, yeah.
so that's what the motion did say. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, next on the agenda is number 9, recommend approval to council of an ordinance to amend Beaufort County's traffic impact analysis, TIA policy. And Mr. Fralick's Assistant County Administrator. Oh, no, do you want to introduce yourself? You're
Yes, I'm Kevin Sullivan, Transportation Planner, Beaufort County Engineering.
the transportation planner instead of, okay, the
Yes,
expert,
ma'am.
right?
It's my pleasure to present to the committee our TIA ordinance. We're asking for a recommendation to go to council. The Planning Commission approved last week. It is a update to our TIA policy that makes our policy more regional and more consistent, but it's still consistent with SCDOT standards. So that's what we're seeking today from the committee.
All right. Do we have a motion and a
Yes,
second?
Madam Chair, I will make the motion that we approve this and send it on to county council. This
I'll
is a
second
very
it.
good policy.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion? Anyone have
I have
some
a question.
Yes, ma'am?
Yep, Madam Chairman, I do have a
Oh, okay.
comment,
go
but
ahead.
I'll wait till I go after Tab.
All right.
No, you can go first.
Mine is not really related to the motion itself, but I guess it's related to the efficiency of the traffic flow. Coming off of St. Helena by Sam's Point Road and Highway 21, somehow that traffic flow there has been backing up. I don't know what's causing it, but if y'all can look into that, I sure would appreciate that. That's all I want to make comment. I'm going to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
All right, Ms. Tabernet?
So I just have a question. First of all, you did a giant rewrite, so congratulations on being so patient to rewrite this whole thing. But my question is, what's so magic about generates 50 or more trips during the peak hour? Where's 50 come from?
Well, 50 is what it was originally,
Yeah,
and it's based on, I guess, what we call like an industry standard. But
okay.
you try to make it specific and you try to make it customized and you tailor it to your specific needs. So you can go to California, it may be another number. You may go to New York, it may be another number. But it's based on the preferences of a particular community or county. So, basically, when you have developments come in, if you want to take a look at these developments at a certain trip number, that's a decision that's made based on engineering expertise, and then you kind of go off that because everything is built off that. Once you decide we want to do a traffic impact analysis at 50 trips, then once a developer comes in, he or she comes in, they know, okay, if I have a development at 100 trips, there's no need to ask a question. It's known. It's in the policy. You have more than 50 trips. So, it's like a notice to who's ever coming in to do developments within your region.
It just seemed kind of low, 50 trips within a 2-hour period in the morning and 2 hour in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
That's not 50 round trips, that's just 50 trips in?
That's just, it's
Or-
25 in, 25 out.
Okay, that's not very many.
Right. The Planning Commission had the same question. They actually had the same feeling about the number of trips as well. And they actually felt comfortable with the 50 trips.
So I guess the question is, see, I didn't know if it was 25 in, 25 out.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was 50 in, 50 out. This doesn't clarify that.
Okay.
I mean, if a developer reads this, they don't know it's 25 in, 25 out unless we tell them that, I assume.
Okay.
But that's not clear in this to me.
50 total? Okay.
50 total?
Yeah. Hi, Jennifer Beal Engineering, we're one of the on-call traffic engineering consultants. Nice to see everybody. It's 50 total, so it could be a combination of in and out, but it's during 1 hour of the peak. The DOT, the South Carolina Department of Transportation standard is 100. But Planning Commission, in coordination with Planning Commission and the other municipalities, 50 trips, which is, you would have more traffic studies would be being completed because that trip threshold is a little bit lower. But that's with all the feedback that we got from, we worked with LAT's technical committee and everything, that was the number that was desired to move forward with, was that 50
So
trips.
you're saying 50 trips within an hour, because this lists 2-hour periods.
It's 1 hour within that 2-hour period. So we have a peak period of 7 to 9 in the morning and 4 to 6 in the afternoon, and it's 50 trips during one of that time. So it could be 7:15 to 8:15, it could be 7:30 to 8:30. It's just one hour during that 2-hour time period of that kind of commuter peak in the morning.
It's kind of a snapshot?
Yeah, it's a
of an hour?
snapshot of like the worst case conditions.
It's kind of like a moving target. Okay, thanks. That was my question.
I had a question regarding schools, living near
Nearby.
a middle school and an elementary school. The peak hour for the schools is earlier usually than 4 o'clock. Is that,
Correct. For schools or other even like recreational uses, that gives this ordinance gives the administrator of the ordinance the ability to ask for other time periods. For example, schools, you would pick up a 2 to 4 school PM peak hour. If it's a purely recreational, you may pick up a Saturday, or if it's a church, you may pick up a Sunday. So that does give that
Flexibility.
discretion
Okay.
during that scoping part of the study, but it does actually give a standard traffic study would just have that AM and PM peak hour.
and that y'all mentioned it, but this has been coordinated with the municipalities in?
Correct.
What about Jasper County and Hardyville?
Yes, so the LAT's technical committee, everybody is kind of working with a similar version of this. Some of the municipalities were actually already addressing it, but the whole point of this is having more of a regional approach to studies, making sure that there's a consistent look of what approved developments are being included and what the growth rates are and everything as we kind of move forward, since we all are also intermingled.
Have any of them adopted, or will this be the first action?
Hardyville adopted their own. I believe Hilton has adopted one that those are already in process, and then a lot of the other municipalities are kind of waiting for the county to go first, and then they'll match up. And they've tweaked the language a little bit, but all of the ordinances are very similar.
Okay. I think we had a motion before we started this discussion, didn't we?
You do.
Yeah. Without objection, we'll move it forward. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for
Thank
all
you.
the work on it, too.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, committee. Thank you.
All right. Let's go on to number 10. This is consideration by council of an ordinance amending the zoning map for 4.73 acres located at 26 Eustis Landing Road from T2 Rural, that's T2R, and T2 Rural Center, T2RC, to T2 Rural Center, T2RC, and Mr. Merchant will talk to this, give us
Okay.
the background information on it.
All right. Well, good afternoon. The Planning Department received an application for a zoning map amendment for a parcel located at 26 Eustis Landing Road. The parcel is, the size is approximately 4.73 acres. It's a flag-shaped lot, and the front portion that touches Highway 21 or Sea Island Parkway is zoned T2 Rural Center. The rear portion, so it splits in, the rear portion is zoned T2 Rural. They're requesting to rezone the entire property T2 Rural Center. There's a applicant has an option to buy the property, and they would like to develop a marine service repair shop. But it's always important to note that any map amendment, in changing the district boundaries, you're adopting all the uses that are allowed in that district. There's a big difference between T2 Rural and T2 Rural Center. T2 Rural is primarily an agricultural, rural residential district that allows a maximum density of 1 dwelling unit per 3 acres. It has limited non-residential uses such as agriculture, agricultural support services, and several others, but it's primarily a rural residential agricultural district. T2 Rural Center is a district that is meant to serve as a small commercial center for rural communities. And so it allows rather broad range of retail, office, light industrial uses. However, they're limited to 25,000 or 15,000 square feet or less. So it's broad range of uses, but limited in scale. In this particular area, the Eustis community is part of Ladies Island, but it's a very rural part. And if you're going east from the center of Ladies Island, you cross the marsh, you have the airport, the Walmart, and then really after that point, the density and the character tapers off to more of a rural residential character. I would argue more like St. Helena Island than Ladies Island. And this community, the Eustis community, is recognized as a rural crossroads in our comprehensive plan because, of its historic community there with many families who've lived there for generations. There's a small commercial district at the corner of Eustis Landing Road and Sea Island Parkway. And going back to 2004, our department developed a commercial district in that area to respond to, at that time, were a number of non-conforming uses. You have a gas station, feed and seed store, there's several uses in that area. And in working with the community, about 20 years ago, there was a strong interest in the district boundaries being drawn to accommodate existing uses, but not to be expanded to allow for additional growth in this commercial area. So, going back to interaction with the community at that time, that was something that we took away and then, proposed the boundaries that you see today. Another important thing to know about this area is that our comprehensive plan, we have growth boundaries in northern Beaufort County. Right now, the growth boundaries, and this is between the city of Beaufort, town of Port Royal, and Beaufort County. Right now, they go to Chowan Creek, which is the delineation between Ladies Island and St. Helena Island. But the comprehensive plan recommends that we work with the municipalities to move that further westward to just east of the Walmart site. So there's a concern, in the community, we did not want to see this area be stripped commercial all the way to the Chowan Creek Bridge. And so any additional commercial in this area, we're very concerned about in expanding commercial for that reason. When we look at the factors that we evaluate a rezoning, the first one is consistency with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. And as I kind of summarized before, the two that we believe that it's not consistent. The one reason is that because this area is designated as a rural center and there's a small commercial area that serves the community, the language in our comprehensive plan specifically says that this use would provide a small amount of pedestrian-oriented, locally serving retail in a rural context and transition quickly into agriculture uses or the natural environment as one moves away from the intersection or from the center of the community. And as you can see from this map, I would say the mid shade of green, and I apologize, it's a little bit hard to read. If that were changed to T2 Rural Center, then you would have commercial uses being introduced well into the Eustis, to the more residential parts of the Eustis community, which we believe is inconsistent with that definition of rural crossroads. And then the other one is simply the moving or the proposed movement of the growth boundary, that this goes counter to that recommendation or comprehensive plan.
Can you point out where the growth boundary ends?
Yes. On this map, if you see at the right end of the page, the little blue creek, it pretty much, that's the growth boundary today. That's Chowan Creek, which separates Ladies Island from St. Helena Island. What we're proposing is that this would move just east of the Walmart site, so it would be kind of at the other end of the map, with the expectation of this area would not see the same amount of growth that you have in the center of Ladies Island.
Madam Chair.
Yes, before we do that, I'd like to give the committee some direction, a little bit. We
Yeah.
have, this is gonna be not complicated, but we've got a long list of things we have to either grant or deny.
Yeah.
And so we need to carefully go through these and ask questions.
And I'll go through the list if that is the.
Yeah,
If-
unless,
And that was
Okay.
going to be my question, especially you said about growth boundaries, which
Mhm.
one of the 9?
Yes,
does
and
growth
actually,
boundaries fall in?
the two items that I mentioned deal with number one, and that's consistent.
Both.
And from our department, that is seen as, the most important is, the primary thing we look for at first is consistency with the comprehensive plan. And usually when something is inconsistent, then the other questions tend to
Fall in
trend
place.
negative as well. When we looked at number two, this change wouldn't really promote any conflicts in the development code. It would be inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. We do not believe that this demonstrates a community need, nor is required by change conditions. Number five, because of introducing this land use or commercial uses, well into the neighborhood that is currently residential, we believe that it would introduce uses that are incompatible with existing and proposed, surrounding land subject to the application. So number five, we believe that it would not be compatible.
And
And
on
number six, very
page
similar.
26 is the one where we have a choice. Sarah, if you could bring up 26, page 26 too. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you.
Oh, that's okay.
But I think it may be clearer. Okay, going back to number 5 again.
Yeah. So five, we're saying is incompatible. So I guess that would be no.
Is not. Okay.
Yeah, is not compatible. Number six, very similar to five, that this would adversely impact nearby lands. And also in number seven, would not result in logical, orderly development pattern, which our comprehensive plan is proposing for that area. The issue of number eight, typically when we respond to impacts of the environment, we do not, because we have our code, we have stormwater requirements, buffers, that, obviously introducing commercial uses can have a greater impact, but they are mitigated by the requirements in our community development code. And number nine, actually, we believe that this would result, this particular introduction of this use wouldn't necessarily be taxing on existing delivery of services. It's not impacting schools. It's not generating a lot of traffic, and so that's not the primary concern with staff. And then in summary, the staff, our recommendation to the Planning Commission, we stated that staff recommends denial for the reasons stated in what I mentioned above. The zoning of the parcel was deliberately designed to confine businesses along Sea Island Parkway and prevent their encroachment onto local roads. This intentional limitation on growth in this specific area has been established to preserve its character. In addition, the comprehensive plan specifies that any rezoning in this area should adhere to the rural crossroads place type, which is not in case with the current proposal. The Planning Commission at the May 6th meeting unanimously voted to recommend denial of this application as well.
And did they go through the questions that are listed? On
Yes,
page
we did
26?
in the staff report.
In the staff report,
Yeah.
it's listed that way. And if you could further explain the owner, this is a conditional, someone wants to buy the property?
Yeah, this happens a lot where somebody has an option to buy the property and it's
Based on-
contingent on rezoning of the property.
And only a small portion of it is actually on the parkway, the flag part of it.
Yeah, I would say,
many feet?
maybe a little less than a third of the property is currently zoned to rural center. So that portion of the property, which is similar in size to the parcel next to it, which is a gas station, that is zoned for, that's vacant and zoned for commercial development. It's that rear portion that primarily fronts Eustis Landing Road that's zoned T2 rural, which they're requesting to upzone.
We need a motion first.
May I suggest that you ask the applicant if they would like to speak so that we avoid that situation we ran into recently? And then council could make
Is
a
the
motion.
applicant here?
I don't believe they're here.
Okay, thank you for reminding me. Okay, so in order to have
No,
a
we-
discussion,
I would love to make a motion for this.
okay, Councilman Glover, would you like to make a motion?
Sure. I will make a motion that we support the recommendation coming from the staff and highlighted that, number one, it is inconsistent with the furtherance of goals and policy of the comprehensive plan. Number three, it does not address a demonstrated community need. It's number four, it is not required by changed conditions. Number five is incompatible with existing and proposed uses surrounding the land subject to the application and is the appropriate zone and use of the land for the land. Number six, that it would adversely impact nearby land. And number seven, would result in a logical and orderly development plan, would not result in a logical and orderly development pattern.
And then number 8 and number 9?
I'm
He
not
doesn't
too
have
sure
to do
whether
that.
I would
He doesn't need-
include
Oh.
8 and 9
Okay.
in this motion.
Okay, thank you. Tom Kennedy concurs with you. Okay, we have a
I'll
motion.
second that.
May I
Discussion?
interject? I really think the motion would be to be correct that Mr. Glover would make a motion to recommend to council a denial of an ordinance to amend based upon the factors that he just indicated.
Because it wouldn't have to go to council then.
It has to go to council.
As a negative
As
recommendation.
a negative recommendation, right. Okay, Councilman Glover, can you change the wording a little bit for that?
I'm not too sure I followed Mr. Passman on that. I think
You're gonna make a
I
motion.
made a motion,
To recommend denial of an ordinance amending zoning map for the 4.3 acres as you indicated in items 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Right,
It
okay.
has to go to council. And it's
And to be
going
forwarded to
a
county council, yes.
recommendation to deny. Okay?
Okay, and the second was by, you agree to that? Okay, all right. Any other further discussion? I agree with what Councilman Glover said, based on, that Eustis Road is very rural to me, and that's 1 per 3 acres, correct?
And I would also remind council that about 4 years ago, I think Rob can speak to it, I think he talked to about it earlier, that there were some property along Sea Island Parkway that was not a part of the commercial zone, and we actually placed those parcels in the commercial zone because it was sort of left out. So we did the right thing there. And on this particular parcel, they do have frontage on Sea Island Parkway, which they can have the commercial development. But the remaining part going down Eustis Landing is rural characteristic, and I think it should remain that way. And that's what the community wants to express as well. So thank you, Madam Chairman.
Are there any other discussion or comments? Okay. Councilman Dawson, did you have anything? No? Okay.
No, I support Councilman Glover's recommendation.
All right, without objection, this will move forward with the motion as stated to full council.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Merchant. All right, the next item on the agenda is number 11, recommend approval to council of a resolution authorizing the interim county administrator to execute a volunteer service agreement with the Friends of Whitehall Park to allow them to provide volunteer services to be performed at Whitehall Park for the benefit of the county. And Ms. Daggett, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. So in May, you had a similar resolution of recommendation for volunteer services agreement with the Friends of Fort Fremont. So that has been successfully signed. And so today we're coming to you with the same agreement for the Friends of Whitehall Park. And I did also want to give a thanks to the Friends Group, Mr. Semler and Mr. Paul B. Terre, on their patience while we were working through some of the insurance issues, and Ms. Ward with the county's legal department did a really good job coordinating with their insurance companies and making sure we could all agree to something. So that is what you have before you, and I can take any questions if there are any.
Would Councilman Glover like to make a motion?
Oh, I would love to, Madam Chairman. I think this is a good way of council saying to the community, we appreciate your involvement and all the things that you do that assist in our parks. And with that, I motion to approve the agreement for volunteer services for the Friends of Whitehall Park.
Recommend approval.
I'll second that.
And second by Councilman Dawson. Any questions or discussion?
I just have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I think it's great we have volunteers that want to do things like litter pickup and keep the park looking beautiful, so this is great, and all of our parks should have something like this, so I totally support this. And kudos to the volunteers that do it in 90-degree heat.
Yeah, really. I second that one.
And as Bob Semler and others online, remember, this was we're glad we got 9 acres instead of 1 acre, as someone would have wanted us to have at one time. This is a good joint project with the city of Beaufort that has turned out beautiful, and your office is doing a good job of publicizing things people can do at Whitehall Park too. So
Thank you.
Or maybe it may be Hannah helping with that too. I'm not sure, but we're getting some good publicity on that.
It's all
part.
a team effort.
Are you any way to know how many people are using it, or yeah?
Actually, part of next fiscal year is the purchase of trail counters.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to get those installed. I do have some data for some other parks, but not for Whitehall.
Great. Any weddings there yet?
Oh, yes, bunch.
A bunch.
Yes.
Okay. It's a beautiful scene.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you. And this will recommend approval. Without objection, we'll recommend approval to go to full council. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Semler. Okay. Last but not least is number 12, which is recommend approval to council to fund due diligence and negotiate terms or acquisition for green space applications. We had 4, and I want to remind the committee, this is only for due diligence. We've got Trotter's Loop, Essex Farms, Victoria Bluff, and Broad Creek Marina. And Mr. McShane, who's chairman of the Green Space Advisory Committee, and Mark Davis, who's deputy director of planning, will talk to this.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, council members. Mr. Dawson, Mr. York, good to see you even online. I am Mike McShane, a resident of Charleston County, and have the privilege of serving as your chairman of your Green Space Advisory Committee. And before you this afternoon are 4 projects for the Phase 1, seeking permission to do due diligence, meaning the advisory committee saw enough merit in the application and the discussion on the project to come forward to request dollars to do some additional diligence, including surveys, appraisals, other work, and even further negotiations along with the applicants. I just note that of the 4, interesting, not by design, they came from each of the 4 geographic districts. Just the way this application round went, that we had 1 from each of the 4. And you have a mix of, and for the first time, a farmland protection, something that is a great focus by the committee and frankly, the state at large, looking to protect our farmlands. 2 privately owned under easement And as I said before, there's a balance between trying to buy it all and those that need to be privately held, managed privately, but protected. There's a synergy there. And then, of course, one of a fee simple application by the town of Hilton Head. Is it your pleasure? You want to just go through each one?
I think
And the
that-
order I have would be Essex Farm.
Okay.
Oh, you want to do, I'm happy to do whichever way. Okay, Essex Farm,
Yes, sir.
located up in northern Beaufort County, surrounded by, and if maybe the next slide, I think had a lot of, you can see, surrounded by a lot of conservation work there. For full disclosure, a property called the Nemours Wildlife Foundation, I serve as a trustee and chairman of that organization. We're not contingent to it, but I do, just for disclosure, share that I have an interest in that property. But you can see the neighborhood, and actually, the good thing about conservation, I see that map's not even really up to date, correct? Yeah, because you actually have even more work in that area. So it's, our request is to, for that, to get permission to do the due diligence. Madam Chairman, any questions specifically on this particular tract?
Anybody on the committee have specific questions?
So
about it?
this would be only, they have to keep using it as farmland.
Yes, ma'am, but we don't there would be an instrument of an easement that would document what the limitations would be and what restrictions, but it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be this particular product versus that particular produce. It stays in an agricultural use.
Okay.
Any other questions? How many, am I curious how many acres it is? It's quite a large tract.
932.
Yeah, it's quite a large tract. Yeah. Okay.
And this is a generationally owned property, which we're starting to see families value the fact that they now have generational ownership in that. So, thank you.
We'll move on to Trotter's Loop.
Yes, ma'am, this is on Ladies Island. And is also, this is the first one of a conservation easement of the traditional method, and you can see there's great pressure in that area now. This is a family has worked very diligently to have not had generational ownership. They've actually been buying these small tracts, and in my memory, and I'll clarify, 18 different tracts to accumulate this particular holding, and then now want to put this in an easement. I think it's a wonderful a tribute to the family to have that kind of value, to be able to work diligently to acquire 18 different tracts, bring it as one, and then place an easement under that.
Any questions regarding Trotter's Loop?
How many acres is that, Sean?
55.
55?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions regarding Trotter's Loop? And then number 3 is Victoria Bluff tracks and Bluff.
So I think most people in Beaufort County are probably familiar with the Victoria Bluff and the Waldale Maricultural Center. If you could go to the next slide, I think it shows, and then I'm going to ask if you'll come back to this. You can see sort of its position. There's the Waldale Center, and of course the Victoria Bluff Heritage Preserve tract. The tract that's right along 278 that says SCDNR land is a tract that I actually had the pleasure, when I served on the DNR board, to help the agency acquire. And if you think about connectivity and adjacency are two big values in looking at conservation. If you're going to invest in that, you want to have it where you're not an isolated oasis in the middle of a great deal of pressure. And of course, what's in yellow is what this family owns, and they have respectfully come. It's not an inexpensive piece of property, which is why you might notice our due diligence request is a little higher than normal, but we think that we're going to have to do some things because it has had multi-generational ownership and probably not had a lot of legal work done on property description, surveys, et cetera, in some time. So we just want to be prepared that we can be in a position to address that. It's a beautiful piece of property, and again, you can see the pressure that's around it. This would have a lot to do with protecting already what the state is invested in assets there that the public benefits from. And so we solicit your help on that protection of that 400 plus acres.
Okay. Any questions regarding? Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am?
this is my district. I didn't know about this, but that piece of land has been there for a long, long time. And
Yes.
I thought it was owned by the state, is it not?
What you see in the light, what I describe as the light blue, is owned by the state, Heritage Preserve and
Oh,
DNR. Heritage Preserve is a state program that allows a status placed on that would make it very difficult for the state to ever divest itself of that. So it's really truly Heritage Preserve in that context.
Because 27 years ago, I bought a house over in Sawmill Forest, which is right next to that.
Mhm.
Mr. Durst is the one that owned the land all the way back in the back. Does he own this?
I think that is the family, yes.
Oh, it is? Oh, okay. Wow, all right. So,
So you can imagine what they're going to be contributing.
company,
They're
Mr.
going to be
Durst.
contributing a great deal of value, what they could
Yeah.
see
right,
there. And I think that speaks to their character of that they're willing, in a voluntary method,
Yeah.
negotiate, not a regulation, and being compensated for placing the conservation easement on
yeah,
that.
he wasn't too happy when that little development went in. And he blocked the road. You didn't dare go down that road. But I'm really happy to hear this. I really
Yeah,
am.
thank you.
And thank you so much.
Madam Chairman?
Madam Chairman, let me quickly ask a question. Mr. McShane, the piece that's left along Sawmill Creek, who owns that piece of property?
That's that's to the left, is it not? That last piece?
Who's it?
I can, Mr. York, I can get that to you, I just don't have that information in front of me.
Okay, I'm just curious, that's all.
Yeah, part of what the committee has asked its applicants, which in this case is a land trust, is that when we work through this, to then go out and talk to the neighbors in that area, and again, to see if there's opportunity to really create the synergy of adjacency and connectivity, as I've said before, on that.
Yes, and that's the reason why I'm asking the
Yes, sir.
question. Thank you.
Fill in the, any other questions from you, York, or Councilman Dawson, or other members?
No.
So, I'll look to Mr. Kevney. Can we, yes,
No,
sir?
we have
Can-
one more to go.
We have
Oh,
one more, Madam Chairman.
Yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself.
All right.
Sorry.
I'm trying to help you out. I wanna-
The one that's on Hilton Head, I'm sorry.
This is an application for fee simple by the town of Hilton Head to acquire this tract. You'll see the tract in that light green is currently owned by the town. And so this would be an acquisition of the tract that's in yellow. It's currently has some recreational use to it, and that would, the town has commented that they would transition that into more of a passive use, not that recreational golf cart, that's not the right term.
Go-kart.
It's
Go-kart,
go-kart.
go-kart type use there. And there was enough merit for the committee to come back and ask for some due diligence before we do any negotiations with both the current owner and the town on that.
How many acres is this? Oh, 9.
Mr. McShane,
Any questions regarding this one? Yes, sir?
please, thank you. Is this the same one that the county looked at a while back? Is this the same track? Because I've been to that property a bit, and I think the county was looking at that at one point.
I do not have that history. I could,
I think
Mark
Hank
or,
was looking at something. Is the,
I think I'm familiar with that, but.
no, okay, thank you. All right.
you can see now in this visual, you can see a little bit of that pathway that was there, yes, in that open area.
This is in Councilman Kellen's district.
Yeah, the town, I'm not asking, we have not asked the town at this moment to make any type of commitments, but they're looking at a way that they might be able to provide another water access, not a boat ramp access, but water access for that, which is frankly becoming more difficult to find throughout the whole coastal plain anymore. You know, just as properties transition over, become privately held or in a development, then a lot of the public loses access to what may historically been available to them.
Any other questions from the
Looking
committee?
forward to learning more about that, thank you.
No, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Why doesn't the town wish to purchase it and own it?
I'm sorry, would you say?
Why does the town want this to go to green space? Why don't they take care of it?
It's a very fair question.
Just throwing it out there.
You know, under the ordinance, they're entitled to make an application, and really our only obligation is to have a time period to review that application. If we determine there's merit for the conservation ethic, we will come back forward in that time period, ask for due diligence, but does not obligate the committee or council to do any more than simply entertain that. And you may see at times, in general, not specifically this project, where an applicant may ask for X and we may come back with a recommendation of something much less than X, or a recommendation that we not move forward. And we did do that on one project because it wasn't necessarily the property, it was they asked for a fee simple and we think there was a better opportunity on another pathway. Yeah, and it's been pointed out that there are some other resources that might be available to do that. So I encourage, like water access, well, there is some federal water access funds available through the state to be able to, for municipality or county to make access. Your county has been very successful in using boater access, water access funds for a number of projects throughout. That's really where your boat ramps and other access points really come from.
Okay, so this was brought in front of the Green Space Committee to bring forward to this committee, and we would like to vote on all four at one time.
Yeah, I would just ask your committee, is there any objection to taking all four together?
Any objection to taking all four at one time? Just to do the due diligence at this time, okay?
So I'll make the motion to do the due diligence
Yes,
on
ma'am.
all four properties.
And the
I'll
estimate,
second that.
and a second by Ms. Brown. And we have the estimates of up to costs.
Correct.
With everyone understanding why the one is higher because of where it's at. and
We're
location.
speculating a little there. We would obviously, you'll see the actual cost of all this if we came back with a recommendation to do any further work.
Okay, without objection, we'll go forward. And we want to thank you for all your work on these, too.
I'm happy to
And
do
with
it.
the committee, too.
It's a pleasure.
And Mr. Davis.
Can I
and
ask
Ms.
one more
Smith.
question?
Yes, sir.
Beyond this, Mr. McShane, you knew I was going to ask this, correct?
Committee can ask anything they want to.
Any update on the Mitchellville 26?
Yes, sir. So maybe just to benchmark where everybody's at the same spot, the town's offer was submitted, and the minority interest party invoked their 60-day window to be able to either match or exceed that. And we're in that 60-day window. It doesn't mean they have to wait to 60 days. I'm not aware as of today that they've made any movement.
And the current status?
I'm going by memory here. We're probably in around 40 days, plus or minus a day or two remaining on that period.
I was going to ask you. Thank you.
And so we're in a wait position. We're doing everything else. So when that cycle comes to an end, and presuming for discussion that minority interest has not done anything, then the town can move rapidly and the county can move rapidly and so that we can acquire that. Because I think the outcome, I think, is shared throughout to acquire that property for the public trust.
Yes, sir. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I'd also like to thank the chairman. He went to the Jasper County County Council meeting on one of the heaviest rain nights in South Carolina, as Tab and I both know.
Cost me $600 that night.
Per car. But he did an outstanding job explaining the green space program, and
Yes.
That's why you drive a truck, madam.
What?
That's why I drive a truck.
I don't think it would, whatever I hit, at least it wasn't a body, so we're good. Whatever it was.
But we've been doing a road show, so to speak. Julianne Smith spoke to the Port Royal Foundation a week and a half ago, and we've got some ideas to take it to the public. I mean, this is the best news in the nation, perhaps, and at least in South Carolina, this program is.
Love it. Thank you.
And so as long as Mr. McShane will do the road show, we'll keep going, so.
I will. There are a couple of these tracks, I'll just point out. The very first one, the farmland preservation application, is in front of the State Conservation Bank as well. So you'll have a partner in on that at the state level. So that's really the secret sauce, if I could use that term, of what Beaufort County has discovered, is that you then make it far more competitive against your neighboring counties at a state level, frankly, all counties at this point, because of the strength of your program. And that's not because of me, that's because of the way this council set this up. Keep in mind, it was just a little over a year ago you formed your committee. It wasn't until last October, I think, Mark, was when council approved the program. And here we are just in early June, and you've already had a number of projects and more to come.
Fantastic.
First one.
We tend to get so engaged in what's going on at the present, we forget about really the fact that you've just set a legacy, in my view.
And Madam Chair, that's
Yes,
the
ma'am.
reason to take the show on the road.
Yep.
He did it in Sun City and people were very impressed. They didn't really understand the full green space concept until he showed everything. That's why we need to take it on the road.
We're gonna work on some dates with your schedule for that, but, Ladies
Yeah.
Island Business and Professional is tomorrow morning, so I'm gonna do that one.
suggesting, I'm sorry.
But we can go to the recreation centers,
Suggesting to go to like.
libraries.
Libraries, like
Mhm.
we do with others.
We could do the Buckwalter Recreation, we could do Bluffton Library, Hilton Head Library,
Lynn Brown.
Lynn Brown Center, take it around, because this is very important, and also that people understand this is funded by the penny tax, so.
Yeah,
Yes,
I know
Very
my
good.
district, Colleton River and Sawmill, I live in Crescent as well, that somebody's gonna.
Well,
that's
hopefully
green
we'll have a
space.
great story
Green
to tell
space.
with Victoria Bluff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Durst used to have his mailbox out there as a bread box, it was a loaf of bread. That was his mailbox. And he took it down when people started discovering who it was. But anyway,
All
thank
right.
you so much.
Thank you again. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay, is there any other business? No? We adjourned a little early, okay. We'll be back at 5 o'clock.
Yes, ma'am.
We adjourn, thank you.